Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining. My name is Hunter, and we have a cozy fireside chat today with none other than the CEO and co-founder at Offchain, Stephen Goldfeder, as well as the SVP and GM of Crypto and International at Robinhood, Johann Kerbrat. How's it going, guys?
Pretty good.
Sweet.
We're missing the fire though, but it's cozy anyway.
There you go. Exactly. That's a good point. Next time we'll have another screen with the fire, the video of the fire next to it. Many people are very excited to hear from both of you today, given all the excitement, obviously around tokenization, Robinhood Chain, and Arbitrum in general. However, before we jump into that, most people already know you guys for where you're at today, but I think this is a great opportunity to go back in time and hear a little bit about how you got here. Stephen, we'll start with you. Johann, feel free to jump in with your experiences as well. There was a time, let's say probably 10 years ago, where most people very likely doubted the product that you were creating. What was it like building against the grain back then? And what kept you motivated to continue? Yeah, Stephen, feel free to start.
So Offchain actually turns 8 this month, which is actually crazy to me. August of 2018 was when we founded the company. And definitely, even from early on, we were going against the grain. If you look at I mention this always, but it's such a fun fact. If you look on YouTube for the first mention of Arbitrum, you'll find a fall 2014 video from a Princeton undergraduate class or graduate seminar. And that was actually the reason I have to mention that video was posted online in January of 2015. Ethereum went live 6 months later, July of 2015. So these ideas were always contrarian. The idea that you could build a layer 2 that was like EVM compatible was contrarian. And it wasn't always obvious that this was possible. And personally, it wasn't always obvious that this is the path that I was going to go down. I always thought I was going to go down the academic route. Like I was sure about that. And I remember the shock and awe when Ed and I and Harry, we all kind of figured out we all were interested in doing a start. We all kind of expected others would immediately say no. But the reason is and the reason I mention this now is we have this vision, and I think a lot of people have this vision, but we really believe that the technology that we're building could revolutionize finance. I didn't know if we knew exactly what that meant at the time, but my point is it wasn't all the detours we've taken. Some of them are very interesting that, say NFTs that I never imagined. It was finance, rebuilding the systems we have today that were interesting for us. And when I think about today, 8 years feels like a forever to me, but it's actually not very long to have one of the most prominent and most impactful financial institutions in the world, here joined by Johann the Robinhood, actually building this out today, building the future of their business, their international expansion on blockchain rails, tokenizing stocks, and it's fantastic to see this play out. So definitely happy that I didn't go to the academic route, and here I am today to witness this firsthand and build along the best partners in the world, revolutionary technology.
Do you think 3 academic people is a great way to start a business, or do you think there was maybe too much academics there?
So I remember this was probably 2018. We were the underdog for a very long time. Maybe we're still the underdog, but we were the underdog for a very long time. And one of the reasons were it's actually quite funny. I thought in academia, we're these big shots, published papers, Ed, myself, Harry, we thought very highly of ourselves. And then we went to the Ethereum community. It was humbling. It was who are these guys? I remember 2018 in San Francisco was the very first talk we gave at Arbitrum. About Arbitrum was at this CESC conference. It was a great conference. It lasted only a couple of years. And I expected everyone to sort of rush the stage afterwards, oh, these guys are building Arbitrum. They announced, no one cared. No one came up to us. No one wanted to talk to us. No one cared. And that was a very humbling experience. And one more thing, just because you asked, I remember a friend of mine told me that in the Chinese, this is 2018 or so, 2019, maybe, in the Chinese language message boards, they were referring to us as the professor coin. Now, we didn't have a coin at the time. And I'm pretty sure, and for me, it was a bit of I wasn't a professor, I was a PhD student. So they gave me, they inflated my title. So it was, but I don't think that was their intent. I don't think it was intended as a compliment. I think that was very much an insult. And the truth is, I don't blame them too much for that bias. if you actually look at most professor coins, a lot of them fail because if you're good in one realm at writing papers and building technology on paper, it doesn't always translate to actually commercialize technology, certainly to building a business and go to market and all that. So I don't blame them, but certainly probably not the best way to start a business. I think we got very lucky, had some divine providence, but I don't think that I would get an operator in there. And of course, AJ joined us not too far after. I'm not sure that 3 academics and a real estate lawyer are either the ideal combination on paper, but we made it work.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. On my side, I think it was different. I was definitely not going the academic route. I was more the guy sleeping in the back of class, and I was building my startup back in the days where I was going to college. So not the most attentive student, and I think the most humbling time was so the startup I was building was really creating like payments rails and systems to support credit card and debit card and all these kind of things. And a lot of our customers were having so many chargeback issues. And at the same time, the Bitcoin kind of network started to work pretty well. And so I was like, hey, this is a solution, transaction that is 100% verified. You can't charge back or anything like that. And so I will go to merchant and shops and stuff like that, and I will be like making a demo, and I will send the Bitcoin. And obviously at the time, like the block time, I mean, it's still 10 minutes, but there was no like lightning or anything like that. So you will do the pitch, and I was trying to fill as much as possible the 10 minutes wait time to say like to explain all the values of the business and all this stuff. And then 10 minutes later, they get the Bitcoin. They were like, cool, that's very long. And so I was sending all this Bitcoin to all this merchant. I should have already kept them and just would have made a lot more money from that than from the business. But I think, the grind was pretty interesting as well, because you get the feedback from customer, you're able to change things, you're able to iterate. And I think that's what we do still today at Robinhood. Like any product that we launch it at 1%, 2%, all the way to 100%. And we try to collect as much feedback as possible, understand what's working, what's not working. And slowly, I think when we get to like the 50% is more or less when the product is going to be final, and we feel really good about it.
Here, come on, yield for a second there. I'm like, that's pretty good. No, I'm just
But yeah, I think for us, the idea of trying to do cold discussion with merchant, and then not understanding crypto and Bitcoin at the time, that was really a wake-up call for me, where I was like, okay, everyone who's into crypto are like engineer or academics like you that understand the underlying system, but they don't really understand how we actually use it on a day-to-day for really getting mass adoption. So back then I was like, okay, I need to find a way where I can bring that to the masses, and I think Robinhood was a pretty good way for that.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like a lot of people, I feel like the industry itself like kind of went through the cycle you mentioned. It was like, it's almost like we started with finance. Like people used to like Coinbase used to have pay with Bitcoin. Like, I remember these options. I'm sure, you lived that too and probably used it. I just tested it as an academic and bought stuff and saw what happened. And then we kind of forgot about finance a little bit. And then we went through these like different type of finance, more degen, DeFi. And now I feel like for the first time, we're really getting back to that vision. And yeah, it requires someone like you and a company like Robinhood to really jump in, because 3 academics might not have the reach or the ability. And that's another big learning we've had, which is, and this is something which I think you guys are the best example to solve. Early on, people would always talk about like the next billion users. And the thought was that there are going to be a billion users that sign up and secure their seed phrase and like are using technology. Not going to happen for good reason. But you guys are actually bringing on millions of users on chain that don't have to engage. They'll know if they pay attention and want to know, of course, but they may not have to engage at all with the blockchain, but they still get the benefits of it, which I think is really the test of the relevance of a technology.
Yeah, and I think that's really what we are pushing for. Like, when you send an email, you send a text to your friend, or all these kind of things, most people don't know what protocol it is, SMTP or POP or whatever.
Right.
Like nobody really cares about that except the engineers and the people that want to look under the hood. But for most people, the important part is like the email is sent, and maybe there are some optionality like encrypted, not encrypted, like this kind of stuff. And so that's what we want to get to with crypto at Robinhood, like, and that's what we launched with our Robinhood Earn product. It's a way to get yield on your stable coin, but we don't want you to have to manually convert your dollar to stable and manually create your wallet with your seed phrase and send it on a vault on the Robinhood chain and all this stuff. So everything is done for you. And to your point, if at some point you want to export the key because you don't want to use Robinhood anymore, you want to use your own wallet, you can do it. If you want to connect to the chain directly, you can do it. But that's more like the advanced option for the few folks that care about that, and for the masses, like they have this very easy to use option. And I think that's just the beginning, but more and more of our infrastructure can use the Robinhood chain behind the scene, and that way we will get all the advantage to customer, like 24/7 instant settlement, very fast block time, all these kind of things, and then the engineer in the space can always build on top of it and really create stuff.
Yeah, and that is the ultimate test for me. Like I said, the relevancy of the technology, and that option that you may never exercise is actually incredibly valuable. Right. Because the fact that it's there is like, I'm not locked in. There is a broader ecosystem here. I can take self-custody if I want, but honestly, for most people, they'll never want to, and that's okay. And we can come around to that. But there are still significant benefits, like you mentioned, 24/7 trading, fast settlement, et cetera, that you can get from this, which I think that's actually a question that people had for a very long time. Like, I know crypto is useful for this in-group of people that can do it, but like, can it bring benefit to the world? And clearly the answer is very much yes. And that's, if you read like Satoshi's paper, if you read, the original Bitcoin white paper, this was always the vision. Not to say that there's anything wrong with NFTs or memes. We like memes. But obviously, having this top-down approach and really revolutionizing finance for everyone is, to me, the most exciting thing.
Absolutely.
You guys are already touching on the chain stuff, which is great.
Oh no, sorry.
I'm gonna dial it back a little. No, it's awesome. Actually, I'm sure people love it. I did want to go back just a little bit because I think it's very relevant to where both you are at today. What was one of the, I guess, most pivotal moments, in your careers? And then this could be like 10 years ago, 5 years ago, as soon as 1 year ago. Johann, feel free to, if you want to start, and then maybe Stephen, you take it. But it could be anything. It could be a specific moment in time. It could be maybe something you launched, whatever company you're with at the time. I'm curious.
At some point I joined Uber to lead the creation of a small startup within Uber, and the business was doing well, revenue was doing well, but COVID hit at the time, and Uber revenue dropped by, I think it was like 67% overnight, more or less, and they had to make decision around how to keep going during the COVID era. And so they decided to cut most of the non-essential business, basically like anything outside of Uber rides and Uber Eats. And so back in the days, it was a pretty tough pill to swallow because, the business was growing and doing nicely. But it shows you that when you build a business, you also need to think about resiliency, diversification, and that way, if something happens, you're not all your chips in one basket, or all your eggs in one basket, I guess is the actual expression. And so, that's one thing where, for example, Robinhood is doing very well. We have 11 business line doing 9 figures or more. And so when there's a cycle change, for example, crypto sentiment being a bit down, you have other business lines that are actually growing and helping the business to keep being positive. And I think that's what we're missing back in the day. It was very early startup, so obviously we didn't have that many diversification yet. But it's something that I keep in mind for everything that I build now, where making sure that we don't just optimize for one aspect, even if it's working well, and always making sure that we have new seeds being planted at all times so that we can start building alternative, and maybe one of his seed will grow into one of his like second business, or maybe we'll even take over the business in terms of revenue. So that's really been a change of thinking at the time, where back in the startup mode, you're like just thinking about your one product and you need to get to product market fit as soon as possible, which I think is still the path for a lot of the seed stage or Series A stage. But I think as soon as you get to a pretty decent pace of growth, you need to start thinking about what are the other areas you can start developing and planting new seeds, basically.
Yeah, definitely. I guess for me, I can give one personal, maybe one for the company. Personally, when we were about to found, I graduated Princeton in August of 2018. That's the month that we ultimately founded Offchain. It started off as a part-time thing until it became real very quickly once we raised funds a couple months later. But I had an offer at the time from one of the largest tech companies, was then in stealth and ended up being in public. It was 2018. There weren't that many. You could probably figure out what it was. It was doing a big crypto blockchain project, and I had an offer to be like one of the original people there. And I went back and forth very, very, very much around what I wanted to do and whether I wanted to join this particular project versus build Arbitrum. And ultimately, I'm very happy with the decision that I made. And that particular project, I think didn't do very well. Ultimately shut. And if you like project that on where we are today, I think this actually makes a lot of sense. Where like the right partnership is not a big tech company trying to innovate on like fraud proofs or these mechanisms. It's to use this technology like Robinhood is doing to build a chain to bring their distribution, and there's this like perfect partnership. And I think that's something which at least I learned and we learned, and I'm very happy that I joined here. And the company's like turning point, we don't really talk about the bad times. We always like to talk about the good times. But there was like a very like scary time in say 2021 where Offchain almost shut because we had raised our Series A our seed 2 years prior. We were very much the underdog, and we were the professor coin. People didn't believe in what we were doing, and we had very little money in the bank. And ultimately, we had to really pull through and persevere and show people that there was a lot of value in this technology. We're not just building, people just didn't believe it was possible. But literally, EVM layer 2, we think this is a nice academic concept. There's no way these guys or anyone can pull it off. And that actually getting through that was probably like the hardest period of certainly in my career. But getting through that was very, very meaningful and really unlocked everything that we had today. And was a massive turning point in the company to get the funding that we need and the support that we needed to build what we had today. And it takes time. 8 years is both a long time, but also a really short time. But from an investor perspective, you need to find the line people that actually give you the time to say, hey, this is not, we're not building like a sales business on Amazon where we can turn revenue tomorrow. We need multiple years of engineering time to get this right. And there were a lot of people that cut corners along the way. And many of those are no longer here to tell the story. So build it right, don't compromise, have conviction in yourself, and ultimately find amazing partners to build with. I'm not saying that's a recipe for success. But we were fortunate that it worked out.
What was the thing that was making you like keep going basically in 2021 when you start to see the sign on that maybe you have to shut down, you start to have all these issues? Like, how did you wake up in the morning and was like, okay, I need to keep pushing?
So for me, it was, I really believed in the technology that we were building. And I really believed that we were the right ones to build it. Not like patting ourselves on the back or anything, but I just saw some of the alternatives out there and they were shortcuts and they weren't going to work. And I was like, we need to build this. This is so valuable. And it would be just so unfortunate if a quirk in sentiment in 2021 meant that our path was cut off and we wouldn't build this, because ultimately I thought one of two things would happen. Either someone else would build it and that would be unfortunate, but more likely someone else would build something else and it wouldn't be, have the same properties that we built. They wouldn't care about the same security or decentralization that we built, and I think it would lead us to a very different place. Early on back then, really what we were selling was security, because there were these sidechain solutions that promised all the same things. And we were like, no, we can do it, all those things, but security. And selling security is probably the hardest thing in the world to sell, because no one cares about it during a good time. It's only when things are bad. Like when FTX happened, people were like, oh, maybe I should think about security and my assets, appreciated the value of decentralization, appreciated the value of like counterparty risk and understanding, auditing, etc. But often we then sway away from that, and it's extremely hard to sell security in good times. And so you really need to both build security and have a competing product. And when you're competing with products that are putting a sticker called blockchain on AWS, it's sometimes much harder to actually compete. So I think we were able to, but that was the difficulty. But I just fundamentally believed in what we were building, and just thought that we needed to get a chance, and we just didn't give up and just kept trying. AJ and I back then probably did, this was like during COVID, 20-hour days, talking to anyone we could. And the way, my experience, maybe I shouldn't say this, but my experience with the way that venture capital works, it's often very binary, somewhat hive mind, in the sense that either you're like the ugliest person in the room and no one wants to talk to you, or you're the hottest person in the room and everyone wants to talk to you. And there's really nothing in between. And you can go from, and I'm sure you feel this as well, this is like the pendulum swinging. Like the highs and the lows are so vastly apart, right? But also can be so quick. Like one day we're like, we just raised this big round, or are they right? I can't raise a round, we're shutting down, to we just raised this big round, we're changing the world, and we're gonna win and get everything. And really understanding that and understanding the process. So okay, we just need to convince a core nucleus of people that will pay attention to us, what we're building is good, and others will come. And in practice, this actually happened, where we had rejection. Then the acceptance started coming in, and then I would get these emails. Some of these I saved, just like to remind me of this process, where a fund would come back and say, we made a huge mistake. Is there any allocation available for us? And I'm thinking, like, 2 weeks ago, you could have had the entire round at 10% of the price that it is now. Now I'm going to try to squeeze you in at 10x the valuation. But this is the reality of it. And the idea is that good ideas are hard to, are not obvious, and you have to fight for them. And in retrospect, they become obvious, but they're very much, not obvious. I think you guys are a good example of this, where, at least from my perspective, once Robinhood Chain went live, I got so much reached out from my side. I'm sure you got, how is this possible? How are they able to do this? This is crazy. Like from like other institutions that just thought that we were probably years away from this. And the idea is that in hindsight, sometimes like, oh, we could do that. But often the best ideas are ones which you think are out of reach and think are impossible. And it takes that active. You have to get over that hump. Once you get over the hump, hopefully things clear up from there. Hunter, you are on mute.
Rookie mistake, huh? Jeez, 5 years and I still can't get it right. I'm happy you made the little leeway into Robinhood Chain stuff. I think one thing that I think a lot of people have been asking about is the whole partnership in general. Most people already know that Arbitrum is the stack under the hood, no pun intended, for Robinhood Chain.
I like that.
Wasn't mine, I stole it from someone, but it's a good one. I think what most people are missing is the history of Offchain and Robinhood's relationship that actually predates the announcement that happened just last month. I don't know, maybe if Johann, maybe you want to start with that, or Mr. Steven, whichever one of you guys. But it's been a couple of years.
It's been more than a couple of years. I think the first time we started to work together was 22 or 23. I forgot, but we were launching our Robinhood wallet, which is a self-custody wallet that is now very much optimized for the Robinhood chain and all the stock tokens and perps feature that we launched. But back in the days, we were more looking into an L2 that we could integrate to allow for fast swapping, cheap gas fees, and cross between the chain and all this kind of thing. So I think AJ and I, we were in Denver when we announced that at East Denver a few years ago, and it was basically a smaller partnership scale, I will say, but it's how it started. And I think one thing that people don't realize with Robinhood is that we actually don't do many partnership. We probably do on the crypto side, we probably do a few a year, if even. And we are really trying to create this like long-term relationship. And so that was a pretty small partnership at the time. And then slowly we started to talk. I remember Steven and AJ came here in Menlo Park at the HQ to talk a bit more about this idea of creating our own chain. And since then we had many discussions basically, and at some point it made sense to do this larger partnership. And I think that's what I really like about the idea of working with Offchain and Arbitrum in general, is that we have full confidence on the team. We know that they really know what they're doing. They're not just trying to push for extracting value as much as possible quickly, like some other competitors in the space. And so for us, having this idea that we can build our 10 years, 15 years plan, where we literally want to put everything on TradFi into on-chain, we know it's not going to be something that we can do overnight. So we wanted to have a partner that could think about the long-term plan and not just the short-term gain. And that's what we found. And since the past 3 or 4 years, it's been doing pretty good, I will say. And the launch last month has been really, really good and exciting. And the collaboration has been great as well. Like we had a few discussion, a few fires, and we were always able to talk to the team and make decision quickly. So overall, we're pretty excited about the partnership, and I think it's just the beginning at this point.
Yeah, likewise. Definitely goes back a while, a couple of years, and different phases of the partnership. And to us, the opportunity to collaborate with both a team like Robinhood, a leader like Johann that has a vision of what you want to build, and a revolutionary vision is incredible. For me at a startup, it's a lot easier when you have an idea, just say, okay, we're doing that idea. But if you're a public company and you have a revolutionary idea, I'm not there, but from everything I can see, the inertia is always against you of like, why would we, you really have to have a vision, have a strong vision and stick to it. And that's what was most impressive about Robinhood. We work with a lot of different companies, but for most of them, particularly companies that are at all similar to Robinhood's size or scale, blockchain is like the side quest, which is, oh, someone told me about this blockchain thing, I should hire a guy to do that. And they don't really take it, at least historically, very seriously, and don't really understand the full. It's more like that hive mind I was mentioning. Everyone's doing a blockchain thing. I got to have my blockchain guy. We really have a partner who has massive understanding of the power of this, and it's not his side project, but says, how can this revolutionize my business? That to us was refreshing and exciting, and we were very excited to work with Johann from day one. And the thing to understand is, as Johann mentioned, a vision and implementing them inside a public company are very, very different things, obviously. And this is not something you do overnight, and not something we ever expected to happen overnight. And as you said, I'm sure it's just the beginning, and there's a lot more that hopefully we'll be able to do together. But having that long-term vision, which you guys have, and seeing through to it, that's somewhat unusual. And I think that's actually also what's cool about Ethereum. Ethereum, among blockchains, has these like long-term projects that it commits itself to, and doesn't always follow the hype of the day. And that, in my opinion, is where the real value builds. And all those others will eventually start, and we're seeing this today, will start to follow. But if you have the visionary, is the one that's going to have the head start, and ultimately have a very significant lead in where the market goes and how the market develops.
Yeah, and we saw it last year, when we started to announce stock tokens and this idea of being able to trade or this type of tokens on chain. It was not the newest idea, I will say. Like, I think tokenization has been the topic at many conferences I've been to for the past 3 or 4 years. But as soon as we started to launch it last year, you saw the entire industry kind of following, and now it's, DTC to NASDAQ to, I don't know, many TradFi platform are starting to think about tokenization. And so I think that's really this idea of like, we need to sometimes push this vision a bit, and then as soon as it's there, like, people are actually going to follow because they understand the value of the technology. And it's a question of like, you want everybody to kind of connect and start migrating to this new world before like you can really get the right synergies. And I think that's where we are at this like inflection point. But I think at Robinhood, a lot of the value came also from Vlad, our CEO, and I think he posted recently on Twitter that he has 2 wolves around RWAs and memes, and I think he also has 2 wolves around TradFi and crypto. And thank God we had that side of the crypto side, because initially crypto was not necessarily the biggest revenue driver for Robinhood, and it was also a lot of maybe problems in a way to deal with. Like, you have to create your own custody, you have to change the trading system. There is all this type of regulation that are not in place in the US and in other places. And so it takes like visionary people like Vlad to get to a place where Robinhood keeps pushing on crypto and is now like driving some of the new innovation in the space.
Yeah, and all the 2 wolf things, by the way, it's very unusual also and impressive to see. Often people fall in one of 2 buckets. They're either top-down builders or bottom-up builders. And bottom-up, we see this with some chains I won't mention, they'll just follow whatever. They don't have any purpose or reason that they're building. They'll just follow whatever the flavor of the day is, and whatever comes on the chain, it's all good. And there's nothing wrong with that. You should support people with what they want to build. And top down is, hey, we don't really care about other people, what they're building. We have this incredibly broad and important vision of what we want to build and what we think is important for people to see. And what we're seeing is actually both Vlad with his 2 wolves and yourself, but also the chain itself really succeeding in both of these realms. And I think that's probably the most powerful thing, where there's a ton of bottom up activity. People are excited. So many takes I've seen, and people say, this is the first time in years that I'm actually excited about something in crypto. And that energy is important. And we're seeing that translate into transaction count, memes, and really just energetic launches and excitement around the chain. But that other wolf is still there, and Robinhood Chain is continuing to tokenize, add new stock tokens and tokenize equities. And Hunter, I know you're tweeting, so you have probably the latest stats, but has climbed the ladder as the top chain already in just a couple of weeks. We're not even, I guess now we're technically a month in, exactly, as a leader in the RWA space. And the combination of those 2 things is, I would say, relatively unique.
Yeah, and it's just the beginning. So I think that's the part that excites me the most. Sometimes, you ship new products and you're kind of thinking, okay, well, this is more or less the best it will be, and we'll do some small iteration, but it's more or less like the full feature suite that we're launching. On this one, it really feels like this is the first step, and there is many more steps to come. So really excited about that part.
I have to ask, I think given that all this stuff is very, the blockchain part especially is very new, right? It's, like you just said, like, I don't think it's technically even 30 days old yet.
Sorry, my bad.
Crazy. It's not even 30 days old yet. I think we're a day behind.
Right.
Where do you guys have any hot takes with where you see the industry in terms of like finance and both blockchain headed? And at that point, do you think, has that changed since before the launch? As in, like, maybe have you seen things that people have built, or primitives that people have used, for example, with stock tokens, that has maybe changed your take on how blockchain and finance marry?
Yeah, I actually think at some point we're going to start doing this distinction. I think, most people don't know what the stack of traditional finance is running on. And I think in a couple of years, most of traditional finance will run on blockchain, and nobody will ask, what system is it using. I think it will just become one and one together. I think what I'm excited about is actually some of these primitives that you're talking about, like perps, for example, is really much a crypto product that now is becoming more and more interesting for traditional finance. You see a lot of hedge funds, market makers starting to use it to hedge differently. And I think where I got excited, in the past couple of weeks was to create this intersection between perps and stock tokens. So, for example, you can use stock token as collateral on Ladder to trade your perps, and I think it really changed the type of strategy that you can put in place for both the crypto people and also for the more like TradFi people that until now we are more like trading like options and futures. So I think it's really that convergence that is exciting. I think we're just at the beginning, so we're still using this distinction, but I wouldn't be surprised if in a year or two we stop doing this distinction.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. When I think it's just symptomatic of it being early on that we are hyper focused on the technology underneath, but really it's finance, right? It's just all finance. I've said this before, but I've met a lot of people and I say to them, "What do you do?" And they say, "Oh, I work in DeFi." I've never met someone that says, "What do you do?" "Oh, I work in traditional finance," because they have enough confidence to say, I work in finance. And I think sometimes we, as the ones innovating, don't have enough confidence and are questioning ourselves and saying, "Is this the real thing, or are we sort of the side thing?" And I think you don't need more proof than an institution like Robinhood saying, "We're going to build on top of this. That this is not." It doesn't need an adjective. This is real finance. And we're seeing this in so many different ways, right? We see tokenized version of real world assets, stock tokens coming on chain. We see the hype of last year, which were people were taking on-chain native products and putting them in DATs or other vehicles to make them more accessible to traditional investors. And if you zoom out, what you're seeing is this is just part of finance, both on the technology perspective, and I think a lot, as Johann said, will just be built on this going forward because it's a lot more efficient and better for many reasons. But also from an asset perspective, we have another class of assets, and there's no reason why this should fundamentally be separate, and it won't be, and we're already seeing that it's not. So yeah, I'm very probably this is happening faster than I would expect. And that's because we have visionaries like Johann and Robinhood that have the ability to move the needle here on how the traditional market views these technologies and uses these technologies and distributing them to users at paces just faster than I might have guessed 5 years ago. But it's clearly where we're going, and you don't have to look no further to say a Robinhood user in Europe that they can now have all the benefits of buying tokenized US equities built on the blockchain. They don't even have to engage with this at all, and that's not happening. That's not a future vision. That's something that's happening today.
And I have to say too, something that I should have mentioned earlier is that like AI agents in particular probably have been one of the cooler things I think I've seen kind of come up from the launch of Robinhood Chain as well. A lot of different teams building these primitives that we've just mentioned, but with AI agent integration to just speed up the process of like the back ends of some of these primitives up much quicker, or just make maybe, for example, yield sourcing much better. I'm not going to call it any teams, of course, but it's all very interesting and cutting edge stuff. And to see a company as big as Robinhood doing it still blows my mind a little bit, to be honest. It's great.
Yeah, I think that's the part we're very excited here. I think we started with AI with just our engineers and our internal teams using it, and we saw the revolution that it was creating. And I think what we're seeing is how we use AI to level the playing field between institution and retail, where retail can now start trading differently with their agents. We have MCPs to use the Robinhood platform, and on the chain, we were trying to be as ready as possible when we launched to make sure that we had skills to create wallets, to trade on different dexes, and really I think that's kind of why we're seeing so much adoption from the beginning. And I really think, we're just, again, very early on how people are using AI, and each new model is kind of creating new optionalities for folks. And I think on the chain especially, it really creates a world where you can trade 24/7, any new assets, you can have different strategies. It's pretty impressive what people have been creating with it. So, I'm following that pretty closely. I think it's the engineer inside me is kind of amazed by how quickly AI has been adopted by customer, and that's where you see the real product market fit is. 6 months or a year ago, people were just playing a bit with platform like ChatGPT and just asking questions and stuff, and we're not even a year after, like, people are changing completely how they're working, how they're operating, and so we really want to be part of that also during the development for on-chain and the cross with AI.
Yeah, I think the thing you have to remember, Hunter, is, like I said before, not to repeat myself, but things look obvious in the past. Like, that's innovative today and crazy, and to see what's happening. But probably if you were having this conversation a decade ago, you'd say things like, "Oh, commission-free trading," or like mobile first design. That's crazy. That's who's going to do that? And it's these innovative ideas that become obvious in retrospect. And I've also been shocked by where agents are going. But yeah, it was great to see you guys launch dedicated tools for agents and really cater to that market. And I think that's one of the things in 10 years from now, it's just going to be obvious. Like, of course, that's the right move. But today it's very innovative and very forward thinking to see that.
Last question before we end things off. Maybe just real quick, what excites you guys moving forward? And this can be from the company's perspective or just from your own personal perspective. Is there any particular primitives that maybe you're looking forward to seeing people build? Is it something you guys are maybe developing, maybe in the back end that maybe not enough people are paying enough attention to? Give us the alpha, essentially, I guess is what I'm asking here. What's exciting you guys moving forward? If you want, Johann, feel free to start if you please.
I mean, so many things that we've talked about already. So tokenized RWAs for me is really, we are the first steps. We just tokenized another 100 different stock tokens that are fully DeFi tradable 24/7. And so we are still at a very small number, and it's still mostly US stocks and ETF. And so I'm excited about a world where any type of asset will be tokenized, your real estate, to your arts, to stocks that are available in foreign exchanges, private equity, like all this stuff, I think is going to change the way that you hold assets, the way that you can get loans, create different strategies. And I think we are, we've been talking a lot about it, but we are not just yet at the point where it's available and everyone can use it. But I think once you have that available and you combine this with perps that we've talked about, you combine this with AI that we've talked about, you're really changing the entire way that the financial system has been built the past 50 to 80 years, and really creating a way where people, no matter where they are, can trade different type of assets without having to be limited because they don't have a bank or a brokerage accessible, or because they don't qualify for XYZ requirements. It will be, if you have a phone and an internet connection, you will be able to really manage your own traditional system and all your finances. So I think it's a very exciting world. It's going to take some time to get everything on chain, but I think we are moving forward pretty quickly.
Yeah, I agree with all that. And in the words that we use, I'm excited about the programmable economy, where everything's coming on chain, everything's programmable, and there are many benefits for users. Processes that used to be manual or used to be inefficient in many ways are coming on chain, automated, and programmable. And that includes things like privacy, compliance, whatever it needs that you have, we can now automate on chain for your customers and for your users. And I'm very excited to see where this partnership continues to develop. As our goal at Offchain and with the Arbitrum technology stack here is to be the best partner, right? To give you all the hooks and all the tools that you need, not to have to think about the infrastructure layer, but to be able to innovate and build things that I myself could never imagine, or would never be able to bring to market ourselves. That's why I think the API here, if you will, is so strong. And our goal here is to just make sure that we continue to scale, that Arbitrum's reliability, security, and maturity, what we're known for, that really unlocks just this raw infrastructure that would be boring to your average user. And I myself and we ourselves don't have the distribution or the capacity or even the vision necessarily of what products to build on top of this that Robinhood users will want. And that's why the partnership is so exciting, where we know what our job is, and maybe it's somewhat boring. I've never had someone come to me and say, "Hey, Steven, transactions are too cheap. Could you make them a little more expensive?" Or like, "Hey, this chain is just too fast. Like, slow it down a little bit. Come on." Right. So our goal is to continue to scale and build the absolute best experience, the raw experience, and then to have you guys really come in and say, okay, and now we can build all these things on top of this. And that's true, by the way, if you zoom out in every realm that we do, in Arbitrum One as well. We have always, and this is different than other leading L2s, we've always said we stop at the infrastructure layer. I'm not building a DEX. I'm not trying to compete with others, because that's not our area of expertise. That's the builders in Arbitrum One, the variationals of the world, say the GMXs of the world that come in and can build that. And similar with Robinhood, and as we enter this institutional era, our goal is to be the absolute best partner and give you everything that you need to do the things that I couldn't imagine. And my brain doesn't go there. My academic brain, if you will, doesn't go there. But build things together that are just the sum is just greater than or the whole is greater than the sum of its parts.
That's a very good way to end this one. I can't beat this one.
That was really good, actually. Don't worry, I have an outro. That was really good. No, really, incredibly insightful chat, guys. Johann, as Steven kind of said there, we're very excited, obviously, to continue making finance programmable with you and the rest of Robinhood. And we thank you for joining today.
Of course, and excited to keep the partnership with Arbitrum and Offchain.
Likewise. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. See you guys in the next one. Thanks, everyone, for joining back at home.
See ya.